Let's see.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
All right, world, we are back properly with the actual intro. I don't know what in the world that was, but shenanigans afoot. We are back for another week. It's your boy KJ Bradley, the world's greatest chaplain, and we are the Pogues. Man, back in the building for another week. What's going on, Chappie?
I don't know, that intro and everything was as bad as my wrinkle going on in my shirt. So at least something you can, and my hair for that matter. So, it's all good. Chaos and shenanigans afoot.
Before we get started, I know last week we started off or we ended off on a semi-controversial.
Right.
I wanted to address it. So I took some time. I didn't post those snippets, and I wanted to take some time and get some counsel. So I talked to a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds, and I said, listen, this is how the show ended last week, and I wanted to hear your feedback. And the consensus from both sides of the spectrum, from a lot of different backgrounds, was it's not what you say, it's how you say and how the message is received.
Okay.
And he said you may feel that way, but your audience, the way you presented it, the audience may take it in a very abrasive manner. And sometimes when you present a message, no matter how well intended the message was, if the message is received in an abrasive manner, it's not going to, to be received well. So I didn't post it. So I wanted to kind of let that simmer, and then if we get some time, kind of come back and circle back and address it in a more comprehensive manner this week. But I don't know if we have time. With this administration, everything, they are definitely a pray and spray administration. So it is always something going on. But I did want to make sure I didn't forget. For those for our social media family, I did not forget to post it. I wanted to go take some time to get some wise counsel, and to talk to a couple of people, a couple of mentors, and say, hey, look, that was extremely controversial. I wanted to make sure, the in the spirit of the show, I wanted to make sure what I'm saying is not, abrasive. And what I'm saying, I don't want to come off as, I don't want to come off as just another one of those dudes who's just pointing fingers and shit. That's never the intent. So I wanted to get wise counsel in that regard and be like, all right, look, man, this is what I was trying to say. This is how it came off, because we had a short period of time. So what do you think? And they was like, yeah, reset that. So that's why I didn't post it. That's why I didn't, so the guys on TikTok and all that other stuff, that's why you didn't see it this week. I know a lot of people hit me up and was like, yo, where's the poll? Why didn't you post it? What's going on? And I told you guys I'd address it when we got here. So that's why. That's why you didn't see it. That's why we didn't talk about it. And that's why it simmered.
Well, I think that's a really mature way of dodging the bullet. No, I'm obviously kidding. I really like what you said, because there are times where I don't want to say we get off of the point of the show. The whole point of the show was never to just complain. It was to complain and then come up with solutions that we see that are viable ways to improve the country, our world, our lives, and just the things going on around us. So I really appreciate that. That's the spirit you're coming from. And I mean, I I think you're a fair player. I've never taken anything you said as personally derogatory or going off the rails. I'm sure there's things that I've said on this that have been taken the wrong way in my life, for sure. I could probably give, I don't know, a couple examples over the past few years that were literally life altering about how people took things or twisted words or whatever. So, I don't have a problem with, well, it didn't go up. And honestly, though, I forgot last week. I am so just, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, white people need things.
Yeah.
I forgot about it. Yeah. What? And plus, I don't see who's on and who's actively watching unless they comment. So I don't know if that's actually watching or Liberty's actually watching until they make a comment. So I was like, once you started that, I was like, oh no, you can't do it because I can't see if Liberty's on yet. Because Liberty needs to be on if you're going to start posting things.
Yeah. No, I just I got a couple of messages on the TikTok page this week. It's like, hey, you guys were gonna post a poll. Why haven't you posted the poll? So I had to, I wanted to make sure I addressed it, man. And then I take for granted too how much we're, just how far we've come in our audience, man, and just how many people are like, yo, hey, you said this on the show. Where is it? So just being mindful of that and making sure we keep that into account, like, being more accountable, like, hey, all right, man, we got to deliver. So that's another reason too.
For the people who don't know, I'm going to give KJ I'm about to spread it thick on KJ.
Oh shit.
KJ and I had this thought about doing this. If you haven't been with the show from the start, maybe a quick recap. KJ and I have known each other now since 2015. We served together in El Paso. We had some interesting leadership. We had a great leader in the Hurricane, Colonel Norris, who we both really admired and appreciated. But we will both say right off the bat, and I'm sure Colonel Norris will agree with this, he's a very difficult person to work for as well. He made me a better staff officer. And so he did a lot of positive things and improved my military bearing in a lot of ways. So we've known each other. And then when KJ retired, he got out before me. And then we ended up talking. And then I ended up moving to the Augusta area, Fort Eisenhower, and KJ was living here. And so we reconnected and started going to lunch and having really, I thought, very, very interesting discussions. And so when we talk about two pogs, so an hour going by, we would sit down, we'd pick a place to go eat. An hour never happened. We're talking 2, 3. I think our record was almost 4.5 hours. We were almost ready to order the next meal is how long we were talking.
Strangers jumping into the conversation like, hey, this is really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had people going, hey, so at that point, I kind of was like, what if we, and we would talk about KJ's script writing and we bumped around some ideas. And then at one point we kind of went, we should put this online. I mean, it probably won't go anywhere. It's, but who cares? It's for us. And so KJ is the one who's done all of the legwork on this. I literally show up on Sunday night. I click a button and wait for him to bring me into the studio. If he's not here, I can't do the show. I don't have the passwords. Last year, KJ's like, I need to show you all this stuff. I was like, okay. And then we just never did it. So I have no idea how to do any of this. KJ is the one who's got us reached out to CTR Media Network. He's the one that clips has the guy doing I think he's done some clips and helped with finding somebody to do the clips. So this is all on KJ. So if you guys like the show, you should absolutely give, KJ a nice big pat on the back. I don't give him that recognition enough. And if you don't like the show, well, that's probably because I talk too much and I come off as a complete know-it-all dorky white guy. So otherwise, I have, when KJ says how many people we have following, I literally don't know. I have no idea how many people we have following. I clicked on YouTube on the channel a couple of weeks ago and it said 1,400 followers. I was like, wait, what now? Okay. So I don't know. TikTok, So, hey guys, whatever you're doing to spread the message, to spread the word, if we have people actively watching, great. Again, all I see here, I'm not even sure how I see the questions that pop up. I don't get the Twitch. I don't get, I know what Twitch is barely. You start talking to some of the others, I don't have any idea. I'm too old for this crap. So luckily, KJ. So if you ever want to message me directly, you better tell KJ, hey, you know what? Message this to the other guy who's obviously wrong, and we'll go from there. So there's your pat on the back, KJ. Kudos for you to do pretty much 99% of the legwork. And let me just show up and
cursing us out on TikTok, man. That's the best. That's the best. Just keep cursing us out on TikTok. I love it. I love all the vitriol on TikTok. Good. Bad.
Every once in a while, KG shared one with me when we had an early one. We were talking about race, and my favorite comment was just somebody wrote to KJ, "You should know better." What? Trying to talk about actual things in life? You should know better. Okay. So, we are now. My daughter is showing me we're at. Is this for YouTube? We are at 3,140 subscribers.
Jesus.
So 2,000 more. She's giving me a little sarcastic attaboy. So let's see. Here's Ganesh. This is my technical support here.
What's up, little one?
KJ says hi.
What's up, brah?
Oh, she says, "What's up, brah?" Because we say brah in my house.
Brah. All right, so let's get to the business at hand, man. All right, so the chaos of the administration, holy scamoles, man. Where do you want to dive in? We've had
wherever. I love it. I'm telling you, I'm all in on this.
We've had what we had. We've had SCOTUS kickbacks. We've had Elon with a chainsaw. Oh, the Germany elections were today.
I didn't see what happened.
That was pretty significant. Conservatives ended up winning. Thank God. I was not gonna lie, I was more nervous than I should have been in Germany in a very long time.
Did you see what I'm going off a Drudge Report headline? See what the turnout was?
No, was it? I haven't seen the specifics yet.
83%.
No way.
That's if America. Hey, look, America. If we wanted to have a third party, 87% would be, I believe right now we're at about 60%. You could have 23% of people voting for a libertarian party and actually bring some change. But
that actually makes sense though, because I think the alt-right ended up getting like the highest rated votes since like World War II or something.
Well, but having the highest AFD scored a historic second place finish. So did the Conservative Party break 50% is the question though. Because if not, then they're going to have to do oh my gosh, this is the problem with getting older. You forget words. And so what is it when two parties get together in Europe, two different parties, and they do coalition? They'll have to have a coalition. Man, I tell you what, that's the worst part of getting old. Let's see.
That is
Conservative bloc won 28.5%, followed by the AFD, which is the far right, with 20.5%. So so there's definitely going to be a Chancellor Schulz's Social Democrats fell to their worst results since World War II with 16.5%, and the Greens at 11.8%, and the far left Die Linke party at 8.7%. So that's interesting. The far left got 8.7% and the far right got 20.5%.
Yeah.
I'd be curious in the US if we had and we talked about this before. If we had a conservative party, a Republican party, a moderate party, a Democrat party, and a far left party, the Green Party, let's call it the Green Party. I'd be really interested to see what the breakdown of our voting would be like that, because I think moderate would probably, Republican and Democrat and moderate, I still think would get the vast majority, but it would be interesting to see that far right and far left, because we've talked about this. The far left is definitely the loudest part of the left and has a lot of leadership in America. AOC, multiple people in the media are what I would consider pretty far left. But on the far right in America, I think it gets, rejected, castigated. I don't think you would have the same level, because when we think about the far right, and what I think about the far right, not with the media, because I don't think that's really what we're talking about. When we're talking about the far right, I'm talking about them good old boy rednecks that are down south that say, "Hey, let's get our hoods on," or the Aryan Nation in northern Idaho. Used to be in northern Idaho. I don't know if they're still up there, but they could be. But when we're talking about far right in America, I think you are talking about strong racial beliefs. You would probably have very few people of color in the far right in America.
You mean the guys that say things like, you need to put a strong white man in charge, or?
Yeah, I mean, people say stupid things, but let me ask you this, KJ.
Because I was going to say, you don't have to look too far. No.
But let me ask you this, because I think America is unique in a lot of ways, because historically, because we're the only country that white people fought and died to end slavery. Mm-hmm. Slavery before the Civil War was normal, not only in America, but common throughout the world. I believe before the U.S. ended slavery, England was really about the only country that really stopped it. England was actually ahead of the game of the U.S. by about 50, 60 years, because they outlawed slavery in the start of the 1800s. So, but if you look right now and you say, name any African country that their complexion, let's say, matches yours, Ghana, Nigeria. If you have those same ideas and say and we've both seen this. I sent you a video this week of a black man or a group of black men saying, we are the true descendants of Homo sapien, and white people are actually descendants of Neanderthal. And so therefore, white people are actually below where black people are the true humans, and white people are subhumans. Would you call that group far right in that country? Because that's really what it is in a lot of ways. So, but in America, because we are really, I think it's fair to say, we're one of the most diverse countries, if not the most diverse country in the world. I don't think anybody really matches our demographics the way they are. And that's why when you talk about far right and far left in the US, it's very different than like Germany. So I'm curious what your thoughts are when you're talking about America and the far and the political scale versus what you understand of other countries. And I could be wrong. If people are out there and saying I'm completely wrong, please let me know. I have no problem with that. Ignorance can be fixed. It means you haven't learned anything yet. And I don't believe I'm stupid, which means you can't learn. So What are your thoughts, KJ?
In terms of diversity, America is, for all the diversity America has, I don't know how to say this without being controversial, because at its essence, Caucasians are a curious breed, right? Because you'll have a set of Caucasians who will fight to the death, right, for civil rights, and you'll have them fight on the side of right. They'll say, hey man, this is wrong, right? And then you'll also have a set of Caucasians who will say, no, this is wrong. Those guys are subhuman. We're the only right race. You know what I mean? So it's just really weird. Like I don't know.
Do you think that doesn't happen in Africa though, or in South America, or like China?
No, not without influence. Not without influence.
Here's why I think that's now Africa. I'm not as familiar with Africa. China, I'll tell you right now, is absolutely true. China, Japan, and Korea. Chinese people in general, historically, have thought that Japanese people and Korean people are subhuman. Japanese people think that Chinese and Korean are subhuman, and Korean think Japanese and Chinese are subhuman. No. So in Asia, there's a very clear, they believe there's a clear mongrelization of the Asian and won't even recognize that there's really any. If you want to piss somebody off, if you're from China, call them Japanese or Korean. It's as bad as, honestly, and it's a little bit different. Why? Because of national pride. But Mexican and Puerto Rican are very similar. If you call somebody from Puerto Rico Mexican, ooh, that's not good. And so I think, and I don't know about Africa. Like I have no idea.
But see, that's what I'm saying. So, but universally, there is no place on the globe that you can go when you're this color and not be looked at as an inferior species, right?
I think that's true in Africa.
Africa's probably the only place. However, even in Africa, due to European influences, there are still places in Africa where you go and you look like this, you still get looked at crazy. Like even if you go to North Africa, where they mix with Greeks and Romans, and you go to Europe and Algeria and stuff like that, they look at you and they say, "Oh, you're you're not the same." Like even if I was to go back as an African American, if I was to go to Nigeria, or if I was to go to Ghana, or if I was to go to Ethiopia, they'd look at me and be like, "I'm tainted. I'm not a pure African."
Oh, because you're not dark enough.
Well, not that I'm not dark enough, but I've lost my heritage. I've lost my heritage. I've lost my roots. So is
that after conversation, or is that just by looks? Like
this is after conversation, because I've been looking into regaining my citizenship, and what I'm saying, talking to expats around the world, like, all right, man, hey, where's the safe space? And there really is no safe space when you look like us. There just isn't. And it's really weird because civilization began in Africa. So it's a really weird dichotomy, man. And I don't know. It's a weird complex.
So let me ask you something about that. What you just said. What's your definition of civilization began in Africa?
Science, right? Everything can be mutated from our gene, right? Everything, right? We can produce every hue on the planet, right? The Eve gene came from our DNA, right?
So are we okay? I definitions here is why I'm asking.
Sure.
It's pretty well accepted historically that the ideas of civilization, and actually the first city and city-states, was in the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, not in Africa. No way. Well, hold on.
No way. What science?
What I'm saying is the big city states originally, yes, the migration out of Africa happened, yes, and so modern day human, the very first modern day Homo sapiens, were in Africa. What I'm just saying is, are we talking about the migration of what would be considered modern day Homo sapien? Is that what you're calling civilization? Or are we talking the first written languages and the first larger than tribal coming out of the Middle East and the Fertile Crescent? Because I think that it's just a word. It really doesn't matter that much. I'm just curious what we're talking about.
Even if we were to go that route, right? And you look at it, there's only one continent and one area, right, that hasn't experienced a dark ages, right? That hasn't experienced an age of lost wisdom, right? You want to take a guess what that was?
Are we talking about something that actually had civilization, or is it a trick question like Antarctica?
No trick question. Like so like, all right, so we know Europe has a lost knowledge. We know the Americas lost their knowledge. We know South America got wiped out. They lost their knowledge, right? So everybody's lost knowledge except the continent of Africa, right?
But Africa only. Oh, let me hold on though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Africa, everything. Well, not all of.
Yeah.
Most African history was passed down verbally in folktale and stories, right?
Yeah.
So it's very different than the way, let's say, the Jews did it. The Jews did it in very specific. There were very specific songs that were sung down. So, like the Old Testament, by the time the Old Testament got to Moses, those songs about the creation, about the Garden of Eden, they were being sung in verse, and that's very specific how their history was done. So Africa, folk tales, right? It was folk tales. It wasn't specific. It was folk tales, and I think you lose. I think it's really too bad that the written language didn't get to Africa sooner, because I think there's a ton of lost knowledge. But even with written language, you have, the great library at Alexandria being burned.
Ethiopia had one of the first written languages in the world.
One of, or what? Because Babylon had the first one.
No, Babylon got their language from Ethiopia.
Not what I've studied, but okay. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's matter of fact, they came to Africa to study, which is really
cuneiform. But cuneiform writing originally came out of Babylon, and it was used primarily as a tallying, record keeping, to say, the king has to know what he's got.
Yeah.
And so cuneiform came up, and it was basically just scratches on a tablet. I hadn't heard that it came out of Africa. It's certainly possible, but
from West Africa. I don't know Ethiopia specifically, because I think it was called something else, but the West Africa region. And I'd have to go back and look at it. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and again, you have a lot of stuff from Western, like the richest guy in the world at one point. What most historians say, the richest dude I think his name was Massa Musa, came out of Western Africa, and we really don't know that much about him because there wasn't a written language. And all of that's awesome, man. I like that, but the point I was making, that's what I was asking.
The point I was making is it's weird that out of all of the contributions, right? So you have the Moors that went to save Europe. You have like all of these contributions to worldwide civilizations, only to be looked at as if you're pariah in the world is interesting. It makes for
the Moors went to save Europe.
Yeah.
The Moors went to conquer Europe.
Yes, the Moors brought Europe out of the Dark Ages.
Indirectly, because they were coming in to try to take over Spain, and they got pushed back finally, and so the European countries started going, "This isn't okay," and then the England and some of the other countries started going, "Hey, we need to push back and let's do these crusades." Woo. But the Moors weren't there to save Europe.
It's the same way it's the same way that the Anglo-Saxons came to save Africa and India, and then they came to save the Americas, and
Anglo-Saxons never went to Africa to save Africa, though. They didn't care less. They couldn't care less about Africans.
Yeah,
they cared about what was in the ground.
I know, that's what I'm saying. They came to save. What they call it?
I see what you're. They came to save. Okay, we need the quotation marks on that. They came to save Africa. Okay,
they came to save. They came to save and spread love and joy.
Yeah.
All that.
So So that's where, like, again, I kind of look at historically, I look at some of those words as very specific things, like England and Portugal and Brazil, or Portugal was not going to save Brazil. They were going to claim Brazil because they knew Brazil was a new world and had a lot of.
They want to protect Brazil from it. They want to protect Brazil from itself. Brazil didn't know it needed protecting, but they went to go give them a tactical hug, is what we like to call it.
A tactical hug.
Wrap their arms around them real tight and make sure they're safe. Is what just take care of them.
Look, that's the funny thing about history. Nobody's innocent in any of this, right? So like you said, the Moors were going to save Europe. The Moors were going in, and they were trying to dominate as much as anybody else, and that's been the history of the world. The winners have written the history, and Europe. If you went back to let's say 900 AD, right? And we're able to go to 900 AD, and we say, hey, world. Those of you that are the smartest people in the world right now, where's the next who's going to be dominant in 1,000 years, in 1,100 years? They would have said, and knowing the knowledge they had, I'm not just saying like randomly, like here's the knowledge of where you're at 900, the 10th century. They would have said, oh, well, it's going to be the Middle East and the Muslims. Yep. Or the Chinese, or Africa. Egypt was
they were on the back class. Yeah,
right. They were on the decline, but Western Africa was starting to kind of get some footholds.
So you had the Kushites and those guys, maybe.
Right, and then they would have looked and said, oh, and in the Americas, well, you've got the Aztecs, you've got the Incas who were on their way up, and So, and if you'd said, well, what about the Europeans? Europeans. So what, and there's a great book out there called, it's like Germs, Steel, and Guns or something like that. And it talks about why the Europeans were uniquely.
That one this week. Somebody else.
Yeah, I read it I read it a couple years ago. A great book. Guns, Steel, and Bugs or something like that. And he talks about why it ended up being Europe that ended up conquering. And a lot of it was dumb luck. And the biggest dumb luck was animal husbandry, is because you had the Caucasians throughout Europe were raising pigs and cows and eating pigs and cows. Well, pigs and and having horses around. Pigs and cow and horses are not the cleanest of animals. So just like when you have these parents who don't let their kids play in the dirt or don't do anything, those kids generally have a pretty bad immune system. Well, over a couple centuries, you have Caucasians being in the mud and the guck and the gross with cows and pigs and horses, and so they build up an immunity.
Build up an immune system.
Yeah. So then when the conquistadors went to Guns, Germs, Steels, great book if you haven't read it. So then when, Europe went to the New World, they were able to dominate because of, a large, there was already a natural plague going through the Americas, but then on top of it, you had the European plagues that basically came out. There's some estimates that the North American tribes that where the Pilgrims and the settlers came in from Europe were down to 5% of what they would have been. So on one side, you'll have some people go, well, see, that's just God preparing the land. Okay, I guess if you want to look at it like that. But the irony of that all is that without that happening, the settlers, not only do the settlers run into, obviously, people who probably don't want their land taken, settlers would go out and they'd find these paths and they'd start going through the woods and they'd come along these paths and go, oh, cool, there's path. Oh, look, a pre-made town for us. Yeah. Look, there's crops over there and there's animals here that we can feed and we can do some stuff. And well, I guess we'll have to bury all these bodies that are here on the ground, but they're just bodies. So so it's interesting. It's one of those things that I've always found curious when people argue, and you and I have had these some of these debates about the slave trade and all that. And it's like, because one of the things I don't want to say issue, because that's not the right word for it. Is that when you start talking about slavery and how slavery was uniquely bad in the U.S., I don't think it is. I think slavery has been, prior to 1860, slavery was the norm in the world outside of, again, England. And so, 1860 happens. And so we fast forward 150 years, and we're still 60, 70 years behind England in terms of some of our racial stuff. But now you look at England's going through a lot of issues with their policies of immigration, and Muslims are. There's a specific word in Islam for basically taking over an area politically by birth rate and immigration. You don't. It's basically you go in and you outbreed, because Muslims don't think in terms of tomorrow, next week, next year. Muslims and Middle Easterners in general, and I'm not saying they don't think about tomorrow. What I'm saying is strategically, and they are thinking about 20 years, 50 years, 100 years from now. So if you are a group of people, religious or not, if you're a group of people and you say, okay, we want to go take over Montana, right? KJ, you don't think there's enough black people in Montana, and you think it's a right place to turn into a black state. And you're able to convince a lot of other black people to move to Montana. And then you tell all of them, look, this isn't going to be ours, but this could be our grandkids. And so what we need to do is we need to have kids, lots of kids. This birth rate stuff, these Montanans, they're worried about going skiing. They're worried about, only having a couple kids. They can't have more than one kid or two, if they have a couple of kids. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to procreate. And you watch, within a couple of generations, we don't need to fight for it. All we need to do is go there, and eventually this is going to be ours. And that there's an actual, I don't remember what it is, but there's a phrase for it in Islam. So, to me, that's what's going on in England. And most Americans, I don't think are overly concerned about it. I think you have seen some examples like in the Minneapolis area of this going on though. But it's still, I think it's fairly condensed but you still see things. You still see Sharia law being practiced in certain areas of America. Underground, albeit, sure. But, it's something that, and maybe, I hate to say it like this, but I don't care. Like, generally, I hope this world is better for my kids and grandkids. That said, I'm going to be dead in 20, 30, 40 years, unless something drastic happens. Maybe I'm just selfish and I go, I just want to enjoy my time here. I want to have a good job, and I want to save something and leave something to my kids. When, my dad passed now 4 years ago, 5 years in October, my mom's still living, but out of circumstances, I'm not going to get anything from her or the house or anything. It's already been given to a sibling, which is a long story there. But like, I don't want to do that to my kids. I want to leave something for my kids when I go. Yeah. But if I'm able to, great. And I hope I can provide a good living for them, but I'm not going to have generational wealth. Very few people will have, very, very few people have generational wealth. And those that do, I don't blame them. Good for them. As long as you're not stealing from somebody else. And this is another part we've talked about, and I know we're kind of jumping around, but if somebody else, if Elon Musk or Bill Gates or whoever comes up with ideas, Bill Gates is a great example. People talk about, billionaires have too much money. And I go, how do you earn it? Bill Gates, it's immeasurable the amount of labor that has been saved by Bill Gates inventing Microsoft and the personal computer. What we're using right now, the man hours, the opportunity, and maybe somebody else, maybe Apple makes it, maybe it's delayed by 10 or 20 years. I don't know. But at the same time, he was in the right place at the right time with the right idea, the right work, and things. When you start talking about how much time just using the computer to get things done in communication, just in emails and such, you're talking about literally countless hours of man hours that have been saved by Bill Gates. And so if he's worth 80 billion or 100 billion or 150 billion or 2 trillion, good for him. Because at the end of the day, he's making that money because I'm saying, here, I'm willing to trade my $150 for your Microsoft package that you developed originally. And so I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with things like Enron. I have a problem with things like Bernie Madoff. When it's stolen and when it's based on lies. And I know people will say, well, Elon Musk, his is based on lies because he went in and took over companies. Well, okay, but he went over legally and took over companies. And he obviously took over the right companies. And, he's an idiot. He doesn't do any of the engineering. Okay, well, he hires the right people. Quick story on that. And I know I've been talking, and then I'll shut up.
You're good.
So my older brother, who will never see this, I'm sure, but older brother I think he believes he is the smartest person in the room, in any room he walks into.
Bring them on, man. I love smart people.
Except for me. He has readily admitted that I was too smart for him. He didn't know what to do with me when I was little, which I personally think was a BS cop-out to not being a good older brother. But, okay. So this would have been 20 years ago when Bush was in office, and he was just, he's the polar opposite of me, like politically and everything else, right? He lives in Germany. He's an expat. He believes crystals will protect his kids. He hates Trump. I am a militaristic chaplain, conservative who believes that America is the best place to live. Okay. We could not be more different politically. And so even then, he just hated Bush. And we're talking, he's just talking about what an idiot George Bush is, just complete dummy. And I said, so Larry, do you think in all seriousness, do you think you're smarter than President Bush? He goes, well, absolutely. I said, okay, well, let me make a point then. Let's presume you are smarter than President Bush. You're an underemployed person who has nothing foundational. You didn't go to college. You basically bopped around your life being a effective pothead ski bum who has tried to settle into a corporate life, and you can't because you can't make that adjustment. Meanwhile, the dummy that's in the White House went to Yale, went to Harvard, was the CEO of multiple companies, including the Texas Rangers baseball team. He's been the governor of Texas. Now he's the president of the United States. So whether he's had advantages or not getting into Yale and Harvard because of his family, because of his dad, fine. But he still had to take advantage of every opportunity and surround himself with smarter people than he is and listen to them. So who's the dummy, him or Bush? Who's dumber, you or him? Because, and this is for me, look, I could be the smartest guy in the room, but Bush, all the accomplishments of what he's done compared to me, they're not even close, right? I think most of us would trade our lives for the accomplishment, or trade, if it's straight up trade, the accomplishments for what George W. Bush has succeeded in versus the rest of us, because he's one of 43 people that have been president, 44? Because we have 47, but some of them were.
I don't know if I want that pressure. I'll take the access, though.
But you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah.
The accomplishment.
Yeah.
You and I, we're not going to be known. We're not going to be remembered. We're not going to be in history books 500 years from now. George W. Bush will be. For good or bad, he will be. He will have a bio that says, okay, now I have to think.
I was here.
43rd president of the United States. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Obama was 40. Yeah, because Obama was 44.
Yeah. 43.
Trump's 45.
Yeah,
Trump's 45. So 43. Yeah. So
40. So yeah.
Well, that was quite. I'm sorry, I completely tangented there, didn't I?
No, you're good. You're good. I like that riff. No, man, it's. I think this administration is just. I don't know, man. It's. I am in wait and see mode. I am so, like I said, I am so excited for the SCOTUS sessions this year. Like I told you how I felt about it. I think we talked about it a lot last year about how, I wasn't looking forward to how the SCOTUS was set up. And, I was excited for the baby SCOTUSes because I feel like they're more, I think they're more lenient or at least more willing to hear cases and they hadn't been as corrupted yet. But those institutionalist SCOTUSes, I think they're gonna have a difficult time this year, man. I just
So you look at Alito and Thomas as the institutionalist bedrocks, correct?
They are some.
But do you think they are any more institutional bedrock for their political belief, for their constitutional interpretations than Sotomayor and Kagan are for their side?
No, I don't think they give a shit about party. I think they give a shit about who's in their pockets. I don't. Like I said, I don't think it's about party, and I don't think it's been about party in a very long time. I think it's about sponsorship. You know, and I just, we'll see. And here's where their philosophy is going to conflict with who is sponsoring them, right? Because for the longest time, Alito and Thomas has been using the Constitution as a prop, right? As an excuse of, this is why we can't. I'm an originalist. I believe in the Constitution, and it's a founding document, and it's this and it's that, right? Well, now you have a POTUS. Yeah, now you have a POTUS who has essentially said, for better or for worse, bump the Constitution. I'm doing things my way, and I'm going to challenge everything with my interpretation. Everything goes through me, by me, and for me.
Interpretation of what?
His interpretation of the Constitution.
There you go. That's the key to. But that's the key to all of this. Is you're talking about the interpretation of the Constitution, and that's where, like you said, SCOTUS is really interesting because you already have two rock solid, we'll say, originalists.
Yeah.
Two rock solid progressives.
Right.
And you used to have kind of 4 and 4 fairly clear, and then the one in the middle. And I don't think now, I don't think it's like that. I think you have 4 that really are not loosey-goosey, are willing to.
They can go either way. Yeah, they can go either way.
Right. They're willing to listen to the arguments of both sides of a case and then say, all right, let me listen to this. Let me read the Constitution. Let me read past decisions. And then, because you can have, look, there's nothing that says the Constitution hasn't changed outside of the amendments, right?
Right.
So unless there's a constitutional amendment, we can agree that the Constitution itself does not change. The interpretation does, but not the Constitution. And that's where the problem lies, is the interpretation, because the interpretation used to be that owning a black person was just property. Right? Dred Scott.
Yep.
So you have the failure of people when it comes to the interpretation. You don't have the failure of the document.
Right.
And so that's where, and curious, I think it's always funny when you hear people say, well, look at what it says in the Constitution about the Second Amendment. It doesn't mean everybody can have a gun. It's like, well, hold on. The First Amendment, you don't like parts about the First Amendment, but the first, like, especially this argument, this is the one that kills me every time I hear it. Well, when the framers of the Constitution, the writers of the Constitution, what they were doing, they didn't know that there were going to be guns that could fire 1,000 rounds a minute. They didn't know there were going to be evil AR-16s that could kill and make bullet holes this big in the back of people.
They would.
Yeah. Well, right. But I mean, but that's the argument, right? And I say, yeah, but you know what? The First Amendment also, when they wrote the First Amendment, they were using quills and ink and writing stuff down and putting it in wax and send it and say, hey, get this to Philadelphia. We're in Washington. Get this to Philadelphia as soon as possible and get me a response. Okay, well, it's going to be about 3 weeks before they get that response.
Yeah.
So they couldn't imagine a situation where you could literally, like, in the palm of my hand, if I want, I could literally right now text somebody in Australia and get a response in literally in seconds.
Yep.
So they couldn't comprehend that.
Our news cycles or instant media.
Yeah. So that's where the argument of the Constitution versus the interpretation of the Constitution. No. So yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting.
What you're going to run up against this. You're going to run up against what the institutionalists, the foundational SCOTUSes are going to have 30 years. Yeah, Alito is about 30. He's about 25, 30 years now. You're going to have
Thomas is over 40. He came in early 80s.
But here you're going to have opinions where they've ruled before that are contrary to what the interpretation is now. So now
you've got the SCOTUS receipts.
You get what I'm saying? So now either you were wrong then or you're wrong now, and you have to make amends to that. And that is where I think it's going to get good for the SCOTUS, because now you have to reconcile with yourself and say, okay, that is. And then one thing about CT is he does not like to admit he was wrong. He does not like to recant a goddamn thing, and that is going to be. And I'm telling you, I am going to watch with a hawkish eye his every word. He doesn't like to talk doing sessions. He just kind of sits in the corner and just does his own thing. But I am going to read fervently his words this session. I am going to thoroughly enjoy SCOTUS sessions this year. This is one of those things where I am so excited and so looking forward to. I've given this administration up. I just assume it's a wash. I'm taking under. I don't think they're gonna make it. They have so many egos, so many weird personalities where it's just not gonna work. You got a dude that just, I don't know. It's fun and games now. Everybody's, it's cute now, all the antics and shit, but it's gonna grow old quick.
So I hear what you're saying. I'm curious though, how much Thomas will, and let's just stay with Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
How much Thomas will amend his previous positions? Because
in 40 years, he is never, not a single time. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I said now it's going to get interesting, because he is never, even when faced with his own words, he just shrugged it and was just like, yeah, whatever. So now that's why I said this is going to be great for me.
Well, and that's where I say, even if you look back and you say, okay, I made the decision at the time with the best information available, are you going to is Clarence Thomas going to say, and I'm trying to think of a situation, I would say something like same-sex marriage, but he was against same-sex marriage to begin with, and always has been. But I'm trying to think of a situation that has changed from, say, 1985 to 2025. Maybe something along the lines of, I don't know, because it has changed so much. Let's say intellectual rights for, I don't know, let's say actors' likeness on AI. Okay, let's say that, because I don't know if there's been a ruling on that. I don't know if he said things on that, but if you had a ruling that Thomas had done in the early stages of the internet in 1995, when it came to, and I'm completely making this up, right?
Yeah.
Right. So in 1995, Clarence Thomas said, I believe it should be illegal to share photographs of other people without their consent because of the privacy, the privacy of the 14th Amendment, right? The 14th Amendment has some privacy guarantees, right? And so I think in 1995, Thomas says, nope, you should not be able to share photos. Fast forward 30 years, and for whatever reason, somebody, let's say the NCAA says, hey, our athletes come up and they're saying, hey, our like and kindness deals, we want not only to be heard about like in kindness, like in kindness that we've already done, but we also want to have some protections that even though we've been paid for our likeness, that an AI company cannot come in and manipulate our images.
Yeah.
And the argument is, well, in 95, you said it was illegal to share without the consent. But in 2025, well, you've already been paid for your like in kindness, right? You've already been paid for your image. So once you've been paid for that image, if the NCAA wants to turn around and resell it to Grok, and Grok can now make replays, Sports Center highlights of your likeness going and playing in the new NBA jams, you should be able to, right? So I could see a situation where, because we are in certain situations so drastically different in the last 30 or 40 years. I don't think it's even debatable that we have had the most advanced in technology in the world in every aspect of human life has advanced the most in the past 40 years than any other 40-year period in the history of the world. Just the wheel was like one big thing. Well, we've had the internet, space travel, airplanes, go on and on and on, right?
Yep.
So if Clarence Thomas looks at that and he says, well, yeah, in 95, I ruled that way because the internet was just starting out, and it was very different. And now societally, that's kind of a norm thing, is to share pictures. And so if not only sharing pictures, somebody got paid for it already. Well, yeah. So I could see him potentially changing, but I think it would have to be along those lines. I think it would have to be fairly drastic. I don't think it would be along the lines of, hey, I was against same-sex marriage. I think the Lawrence, where homosexuality was not illegal anymore, the Lawrence decision, and whatever the same-sex one ended up being. I know it was Prop 8, but that wasn't the name. It was Obergefell. And I don't think there's going to be one where he comes out and goes, well, I'm going to vote the same way because this group wants to make thruples legal. And so, well, you know what? Yeah, that's okay. Oh, you giggle. One of my nieces was on that Thruples reality show. Hi, Mia. I watched the show a little bit. It was interesting. But
I don't think I don't know, man. I found it. I think what's that? I think Barrett's gonna be interesting. She's a lot more moderate than I assumed. Her, what's the boy that caught hell doing his confirmation? Kavanaugh. He's moderate. But I think he'll be somewhere. He'll be more right than moderate, I believe. KGB will be more left than moderate. So they'll balance each other out for the most part. Sotomayor will be more left than moderate, I think. It's going to be interesting, man. I'm really, really excited. Like, I am really excited.
So with what you just said, and just ran through those different choices, do you think the people on the left especially, but including the Senate, that were so vitriolic against those picks, and it wasn't because Kavanaugh, they didn't go after Kavanaugh because he was just a dude who in college liked to drink beer, right? He was targeted because they thought he was going to be another Thomas and another Alito. They went after him. I will still say to this day that the woman who got in front of
that and the rape thing, I think. Like, I think the rape thing was like once. I mean, it's guilty.
There were so many.
though. But you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things.
Not only
when that lady came out and told, when that lady came out, it was like, hey, that judge raped me. Like
it was a bald-faced lie then. It's a bald-faced lie now. There was no proof. None of her friends even supported her, saying, "Yeah, she told me about that." Right? You have. So saying, like, does Kavanaugh deserve? And don't get me wrong, he'll never get it, but Kavanaugh absolutely deserves an apology. But that's when you talk about dirty politics, and I think we've talked about the Nixon Kennedy thing. We talked about this.
To be fair, your boy McConnell was a whole hoe for that too, because that shouldn't have never been. Sure. That shouldn't have never been Kavanaugh's seat in the first place. Obama should have been able to fill that seat way before Kavanaugh got a shot. That was a bitch move, and Kavanaugh and McConnell can burn in hell for that. That was
how dare you, sir? How dare you, sir? Calling Mitch McConnell my guy.
He got a special place in hell. I hope he burns, and I hope he has the slowest, most painful, agonizing, syphilis-induced death ever induced man.
Now, Harry Reid, who was the Democrat majority leader for a long time, is of my faith.
He could burn the hell.
My faith. He is a member of the. He was.
It was his idea to induce that dumbass decision.
Harry Reid set up McConnell for all those decisions. He was like, I'm going to do all this because we're in charge right now. Not thinking, hey, you know what? 4 years from now, when the Republicans are in charge, they could do this too. So yeah, Harry Reid, back in the day, I thought he was a despicable person. My niece met him, said he's a great guy. He's a good guy. Talked to him at church, but I said, I don't care. Idiot. He is a horrible person. And idiot. McConnell is just the
opposite version. Idiot.
Yeah, he's just the film negative. They are two peas in a pod. They both deserve whatever they get in the afterlife. And McConnell, the fact McConnell's announced his retirement at the end of next year is ridiculous. He should be out 10 years ago.
Which is
he's been freezing. He's done everything but falling flat on his face while in front of reporters. And the dude is still. How do you get? You and I talked about this a little bit online. How do you get rid of a senator that is clearly diminished if he doesn't want to go or she?
You can't. You can't recall them. Unfortunately, you can't. They're stuck there. Isn't what's her name? Feinstein. Is she still alive?
No, she died. Oh. That's the only reason she got out of her seat.
Yeah, she died. You got to do something like that.
Died.
You should not be able to like
die in office of old age.
Like she wasn't she in like an old folks home still serving?
There was a Republican that they found in the House that she went missing last summer. She went missing and she went no roll calls, wasn't in any votes. They found her in a old folks home for dementia.
Insane.
So, well, her staff, we talk about the swamp in DC, and it's not just deep state. The swamp is just as much those career politicians, career administratives for politicians, right? Because Absolutely. if I get, let's say I run for Congress, right? And I win here in whatever district this is. I think I'm in the Georgia 12th or something. Honestly, I don't even know. So that's why it was nice to live in Utah. We only had 3 districts when I grew up. I know which district I was in back then. So if I win the election, now I'm going to have my staff here in Georgia, but I'm going to need some people that know DC. Yeah. And so even if my staff, I'm not going to have a huge staff, but I think I'm going to have 5 to 10 people on staff. I think that's about what most people have before interns. And let's cut it down. Let's say a nice even number like 6. Yeah. So I'm going to bring 3 or 4 from Georgia with me that I know, and then I'm going to have 2 or 3 that I pick up in DC that know DC. With those 2 in DC that are a huge problem, because I can go in and say, this is, you know what, KG and I, when we were Pox, we were talking about doing this and this and this and this. And I promised that when I got to DC, I was going to do this, 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 and this. I want to do those 4 things. What do I need to do? Let's go. And those 2 are going to go, hold on, Chaplain.
Yeah.
If you want to get those 4 things done, what we really need to do is look at those 4 things and see which of the 4 is even possible to do. Yeah. Because you can't get those first 3 done. That 4th one, maybe in a couple of years, once you've established yourself. Because and how you're going to have to establish yourself is you're going to have to go and you're going to have to meet with this person, this person, this person, this person, who are all senior leadership, and you're going to have to pledge fealty to them. Yep. And then if they have a bill that comes up, I'm going, whoa, I don't believe in that at all. Well, you know that 4th thing you were talking about that you wanted passed? If you don't vote for our thing, you're going to be out in, we're going to put you out in the offices back in Siberia. And we're never going to let a single bill that yours comes up. You are part of this party, and we don't care if you believe in this or not. If you don't vote for it, we're not going to support you for your reelection. We're not going to support you. And so your staff is going, and they're doing all the stuff, right? When we talk about the leaders and all that stuff, the world leaders, that's not where the stuff gets done. It gets stuff the lower 2 or 3 steps down. Exactly. They're making the sausage, and then Trump and Zelensky come out and say, I hate you, but here's the peace deal. But that all got worked out 2 or 3 levels down, right? Yep. So to me, that's another part of it. But that's also why Trump can't do anything about that, because those people do not fall under the executive branch. They fall under the legislative branch. And until you have legislature, the senators and representatives in the House that say, you know what? You've been here how long? I'm not hiring you. Anybody that's been in DC for over 10 years, I don't want you. If I were to ever go to DC, if I was ever elected, and I won't be, I'm not going to run, I don't have the money, etc. If some billionaire came and said, hey, Chaplain, I'm going to support, when you retire, I'm going to support and I'm going to back you, I'd be like, great. And if I won, I guarantee you right now, I wouldn't take a single person to DC because I don't trust any of them. And that's where Trump is right now. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about this.
Well,
why does Trump do? Because he doesn't trust these people.
But you have an eccentric billionaire in there who so-called is hell-bent on chaos. And instead of doing all of those great and wonderful things like cleaning the swamp, they're stealing fucking data.
Well,
allegedly.
I thought Elon. I thought Elon. So here's the thing. I thought Elon. Somebody brought this up with him, right? Somebody shot that accusation to him on X, and he said, "If I was in here just to steal people's data, why wouldn't I have done that when I was at PayPal? When I had all the data I needed then, like."
Because PayPal only has maybe a couple of million servers. If that.
But if you're looking at data and you're looking at analytics between PayPal and X, how much more is there? Like, is it because he's going into the Treasury Department to see who makes how much money? Like, PayPal had all that.
Do you realize how much data he has access to? It's not just
what I'm saying. Okay.
He's been to the IRS, right?
Mm-hmm.
The DOE. He's been into what other places has he been into?
Treasury.
The Treasury. He has unfettered access into basically every department, every government department, right? Every government department, unfettered access. So he has unprecedented access. Twitter does not have that access. Twitter couldn't get that kind of access. Neither can PayPal. So I got it, right? And what else is he supposed to say? Oh no, I'm not stealing your data. That's like you asking the bank.
Of course. No, I get that.
Are you in here to rob this bank? Absolutely not. I'm just wearing this mask and carrying this shotgun because it's my Second Amendment right. I'm not here to steal anything.
See, and I look at it the opposite. I look at it and saying, why would Elon rob a bank when he's worth $500 billion and he's the richest man in the world?
Sure. Well, I mean, like I said, we'll find out. It looks real funny. I mean, it just
okay. Does it look funny? Does it look funny because it's never been done? Now, remember, when you and I were talking last year, this is what I said. Something along the lines of, we've been doing the same thing. We've been voting in the same type of people for decades. And we have been, as a country, we've been on a slow decline since end of World War II. Like that was kind of, I would say that's kind of peak. Could have been more peak if segregation had actually worked at that point, and you know, the soldiers that came home and the GI Bill and all that stuff. But regardless of past errors, I would say that's probably a high point for our country. We were on a slow. Vietnam definitely hammered it down. The 80s came along, good, nice bump for money. Internet came along in the 90s, awesome for knowledge. 9/11 happened, huge patriotic surge again. Since then, pretty consistent decline.
Sure.
But the politicians that we've had in DC have been slowly but surely less, maybe less presidential is the word, less honorable, less trustworthy. Should we say presidential? Is that a good word for it? Just
I'm with you.
People you want representing us?
I'm gonna tell you.
What's the word?
So like I said, we've all been optimistic. But here's my thing, right? When you have
pessimistic.
I'm so here's my thing. When you have heart trouble, you don't go see a podiatrist, right? When you're having a mental disorder, you don't go see a dermatologist, right? Those two things are incompatible, right? Or you know, when you need to go plant roses in your backyard, you don't go hire a veterinarian. Those two things are incompatible. They don't make sense, right? And when you're doing audits, you don't hire coders. It don't make sense.
When you are trying to cut fraud, waste, and abuse, when you've had somebody that has done that with companies and gone in and cut the fat and increased efficiency, and look at Twitter. Remember when Elon bought Twitter? What was the first thing he did? How many people did he fire?
That's what everybody likes to go to. I love Twitter. Right?
But remember, he fired, what was it, like half of the staff? And he said, we're going to get rid of all this nonsense of juice bars and this and that. And he fired half of them and another 10% quit. And everybody says, you know, everybody on the left, the MSNBC, Twitter's dead. This is the biggest mistake that Musk could have made. And, you know, MSNBC, Joy Reid jumping up and down saying, watch what happens. Twitter's dead because of this dummy. And nothing against Joy Reid. I really appreciate that you just got fired. But I don't know what she said about Musk. So I retract that she said that. But you did have multiple. So X is doing pretty well now, right? I think it's still the go-to. You don't think X is still the go-to media?
It probably is, but X is in the red. X is still losing money.
Has X ever turned a profit?
Before Elon had it? Yes.
Did it?
Not since he had it.
Okay.
I mean, it could eventually. I don't think they've recovered yet. Still, you know, I don't think they've recovered yet. Because I haven't looked into it, but I don't think they have.
Well, I know part of that was also because they user statistics, even though has not reported net profit loss. It hasn't reported its net profit or loss for 22 or 23.
And then the company before that.
So when did Musk buy X? When did he buy it? 2020 what? When did Elon buy? I love that we're doing live.
No, you're good. Well, good, because I want to make sure. Because
Yeah.
that's what I say. They did the same thing with Donald Trump, right? They praised Donald Trump for his business acumen, but then you look at the rest, you realize.
So here's the thing: Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the numbers.
Okay,
and we'll go back the big ones. So from 2012 to 2017, it was losing between 80 million and 108 million. Million. Okay. In 2018, turned a $1.2 billion profit. Cool. 2019, $1.47 billion profit. Pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it lost $1.4 billion in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then it lost $221 million in 2021. So it had 2 good years. So it recovered. No, it was still, even after it's still in the red overall the whole time it's been around, just looking at the numbers. But it was good in 2018 and 2019 were the 2 positive years. 2020 basically wiped out 2019 and then, or 2018 and then 2019. And we don't know after Musk. It says on here, and this is I use the Brave browser, unreported, but in 2022 and 2023, unreported, but suspected to be unprofitable. In 2024, projected positive 904 million. So projected to make almost $1 billion. 2025 projected over $1 billion, 1.09.
That was after his self-valuations. That's after he valuated. He gave the self-valuation.
Well, valuation versus revenue are 2 different things.
Well, he gave himself like a $100 billion valuation. But then, but you take that, right, and you say, okay, we can take Twitter and say, all right, well, we didn't get the numbers there. Then we look at other companies. We say, well, what is Tesla doing? All right, well, Tesla was profitable, but then it had that sharp decline, and then all right, cool. All right, well, Tesla, all right.
But it was at one point wasn't Tesla the most valuable corporation in the world just like last year? Highest valuation of any company in the world last year?
Self-valuation.
No, market evaluation. Tesla's is a publicly traded company.
But he did the same thing that 45 and 47 did, that landed him in federal hot water. He said, hey, my company is worth this much, and they said, okay, prove it. And the people that was
different. That's different when you're talking about stock. You can't do that self-evaluation.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the people that were looking into it, the OIG, and you can look this up. The people that were looking into it, that was one of the first. Those were one of the first people who Special Employee Musk decided to let go. One of the agencies that were looking into that whole self-evaluation thing. So we'll never know what the true answer was. But then we can take that to the side. So we'll take that to the side. That's okay. We'll take that to the side. So Tesla, we'll take that to the side. And then we'll say, well, what about
I'm not even saying Trump's a great businessman. I'm just
saying we're talking about Elon.
Cuts.
Yeah, we'll take that to the side. So that's 2 companies. We'll take that to the side. And then we'll say, well, what about SpaceX? And then we'll say, well, SpaceX really wasn't profitable, except for the government handouts that Obama gave him, for 8 years.
Contracts are not handouts. Services rendered.
Those were not contracts, though.
Oh, you're talking about the subsidies.
Yes, those are not contracts.
Oh, okay.
Contracts and subsidies are 2 different things we're talking about.
Yes.
These are handouts.
Okay. I thought you were saying, yes.
No, we're talking about welfare.
Subsidies, yes.
Yeah, that company was underwater and going to bankrupt. And what he got 6 years of subsidies and 2 years of contracts once he became solvent. So, completely different thing, right? Well, there would be no SpaceX had he not gotten those 6 years of subsidies. So that company was bailed out, right? And then we talk, he did come back and get the first company where he became the CEO, or he was fired and then came back as the CEO, sold it to Comcast and made like a $20 million profit and stuff like that. So there are, instances of success. I'm not shitting on the guy overall. You grow and you learn as you go. But what I'm saying is I think his business acumen is completely, overblown. Like he's not this fucking, business whiz kid. He's just
Okay. So let me push back a little bit on, I think,
Sure.
maybe a misperception.
Sure.
Okay. Right now, we are at the point where Trump has said, turn off the money spigot. Like there's all this money behind the dam, and it's been shooting out of the right? Just shooting out at, if you've ever seen like the bottom of the Hoover Dam, it's awesome. It's just, you got the dam and the water, and it's just shooting the water. That's what's been going on for years, right?
Yeah.
Including when Trump was there as 45, right? And so there's this money been shooting out. And so Trump has come back in and he said, look, I'm going to shut that off. And that's what's happening. Shut it off, right? Now, when you're saying, and I agree with you, when you're saying, if you're going to go in and find out where this money went, you don't use coders, you use forensic auditors, right? We're not at that point yet, though. Trump and Musk, Trump has not come out and said, look, we need to go in and find out where all this money went so we can recoup it, because we both know it doesn't matter where that money went. It is gone, right? You could see full-on dead receipts from USAID to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was the instigator of 9/11, to direct payment to Billy McConnell, who transferred money to Mitch McConnell. You could have that exact same. And Mitch McConnell is not going to jail. He's not going to get tried. They're not going to recoup any of the money, right? Just an example. Don't anybody get mad, think that, yeah, right. Okay. So we're not at the point where we're looking and saying, this is what, now we need to go get the money. What they're looking at is, let's stop this. We need to stop the money going out. Then, if you have A through Z and all of these have the spigots of money going out, we need to shut them all off. Then look and say, okay, you know what? G needs to be turned back on. But don't turn it all the way back on. It only needs 80% of what it was before. And the DOD, which is, the biggest one, hold on, we need to cut that down to 92% of what it has been blowing out. They're not going back yet and doing any of the audits. That's why I don't think it's necessarily a great argument to say, hey, you need to have coders in there, you need to have auditors in there yet. Now, I hope, honestly, that after the initial floodgates are shut down and reopened appropriately at the appropriate levels, and the American people, and I've said they were talking about, they're talking about doing a refund and saving X amount of money back to the American people, which I think is ridiculous. Just stop spending money. Don't create any more inflation. Just stop it. Just stop wasting this money. Let our money be valuable again. But at that point, if they go in and they want to start doing the audits and they start finding where the money went, and they have the DOJ, Department of Justice, go in and start doing actual investigations and bring in the auditors and all that. If Mitch McConnell illegally took $1, if Ted Cruz illegally took $1,
never happened.
And it helped, I'm just, for me, and probably for most conservatives will say, yeah, you know what? It's not okay for anybody to be stealing money.
Wait a minute. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I want you to put your objective glasses on. So we got the wall of receipts.
I can't even see that. That's the problem with the wall of receipts.
All right.
My objective glasses are no better than my normal glasses. I can't read a single part of that. You're going to have to tell me what it says.
All right. So we are on the wall of receipts on Doge, right? And we're talking about the total contract value. I was going through this. I'm so glad they finally got things put up here. And then I started going through it.
You're on Doge.
Yep.
Doge.gov.
If you can go to Doge.gov and look at the wall of receipts. And I want you to scroll down.
Okay.
And I started looking at it. I was like,
wait, where? So I'm opening up. It says savings, spend, workforce regulations, join. Where am I going to?
Click savings.
Spend.
Click savings. Yeah.
Click savings.
Yep. And I want you to.
Oh, so at the top. Oh, savings. Scroll down. Wall of receipts. Okay, gotcha. Now I can see what it's saying. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you used to be able to see more. If you click see more, right, on contracts, right? If you scroll down, there is a more. Yeah. Okay. I want you to see if you can notice a trend. I noticed a pattern, right? Now this is from Doge, who is looking for.
Well, they're all media contracts.
No. Keep looking. There's another pattern. Keep looking. This is Doge, who's looking for fraud, waste, and abuse in the government, right? It's it's not a partisan issue. It's not left or right. We are looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. And I want you to see if you can notice the pattern. I was able to pick it up about 50 in.
Oh, about 50 in? Are you looking at the multiple DIE items?
No, yeah. There's a lot of DEI. There's a lot of
ton of Politico subscriptions, which is hilarious. Because if you're paying that much money to Politico, which is basically a free online site, that's ridiculous.
There's a lot of EO, a lot of study on equitable
small business, Asia Pacific. So, am I supposed to be looking at the big stuff or the small stuff?
All of it. So, in the interest of time,
a lot of foreign stuff.
So, in the interest of time, I'll cut it short. Right. What I've noticed,
the Gettysburg staff ride services for Forest Service, $150,000 for people on for the Forest Service to walk people around and say this is what happened at Gettysburg. $150,000.
Staff rides can get expensive.
Staff rides.
All right. So wait,
you and I both know staff rides are ridiculous too.
Before we get into final thoughts, the pattern, right? Either we have one side of the wing who is grossly inept at stealing, and the other side of the wing who is just absolute angels at fiscal responsibility and not stealing a dime. Well, somebody's lying. And you ain't got to answer, but methinks some shenanigans are afoot with the reporting. Because throughout that entire savings list, I find it hard to believe not a single dime went to any conservative programs for fraud, waste, and abuse. Out of every government department shut down so far, not a single dime was spent toward fraud, waste, and abuse for a conservative program. And with that thought, we go to final thoughts.
I'll just say this. I think that one way to look at that also is as you go back over the last 4 years, most of it's going to go to liberal causes. So if you start getting back and they go back further, but most of the contracts, they're only going to be I don't know how long government contracts for. Aren't they only generally for a year or two? So unless you're talking about a contract that's longer than 4 years, it's going to be mostly.
They went back quite a bit. I think the oldest one I saw so far has been about 6 years.
Okay.
But so even then, are you saying that in 4 years, not a single conservative effort received a single government contract? Not one conservative cause at all? Nobody got paid?
I'm saying that there's a difference between how contracts are done and what we're looking here on Doge. The number of contracts that are done by the federal government is probably somewhere in the millions. So I will say this: if there are conservatives and Republicans that were going in and screwing with the system and backdooring the system and paying, kickbacks or whatever, shut them down too.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, it's easy to say this is the low lying fruit. This is the easy stuff to see and go bloop, 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 turn it off. So It's if there's stuff that's a little harder to find, I hope they find it. I hope shut it down, because I don't think the federal government should be spending anything on things that don't specifically help the American people, and that are, if you showed it to an average American, me and you, and saying, here's what we're spending, that we went, okay, makes sense, cool. If you can't do that, should be cut it.
I like it. Hopefully they'll. I think it's a little one-sided. I think that Bird's leaning heavy right now with the reporting. We'll see.
As long as the cuts are coming, I'm happy. Keep cutting.
I try to give them the benefit of that, but they are definitely looking one-sided. But
remember, there is more than a 0% chance that it is mostly the left.
Yeah, mostly, sure. I'll buy mostly for $1, but out of over 200 reports, not a single conservative effort. Starts to look a little iffy. Yeah, we'll see. And I'd be curious what kind of look, if the federal government was in the last 4 years. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think there's any chance in the last 4 years the federal government had a subscription, the federal government, meaning the executive branch, do you think there's any chance that they were paying subscription rates to Fox News? Sure. Or any of the Fox? No, you think Biden and the Democrats were saying, yeah, let's go subscribe to the Fox News? I don't think Biden did, but then again, I don't think Biden was subscribing personally to political either.
When I say that,
I got you. I got you. Yeah, but I'm saying yeah, but I'm saying like it wasn't just Biden. Like we got Department of Agriculture, we got. I mean, hell, you look at them. You look at the DOD. Every television in the damn dental clinics on Fox News. So you mean to tell me not a single subscription to Fox News? Nowhere.
Well, first of all, those are cable.
What I'm saying is,
in the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, when I walked into public spaces, in military public spaces, it was probably closer to 80% CNN and 20% Fox News. If it was political. Back when you and I were at El Paso, yeah, it was probably the other way. It was 80-20. But for the last 4 years, no, CNN was much more, was shown in the dental offices and in the hospitals, the places that I've been, even inside certain agencies that I worked at for a couple of years, Alphabet Cities. Jeez. It was more, when you walked in and you saw the COVID numbers, that was CNN exclusively, in fact.
Weirdos. Either way, that's it for us, man. We will see you guys next week.
Chief Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance O'Neill.
Try to take over the world.